Hello. In this video, we're going to learn about solving quadratic equations by factoring. This method will help us to find the solution to a quadratic equation if the solution is rational number. That means that if the solution is a whole number or is a fraction, we can find it by this method. If the solution is an irrational number, like a square root, then we will have a different method like the quadratic formula. For example, I'm going to solve three problems, one easy, medium, and hard, to show you the steps that will help you to solve any problem. First, the quadratic equation has to be in this form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. For example, something like 5x squared plus 2x minus 3 equal to 0. If it's not in this form, if you have something like 2x squared equal to 5 minus x, you have to solve it in order to make it equal to 0. Subtract 5, and you have 2x squared minus 5, and cancel equal to negative x, and then add x, this is an x, and it will be 2x squared plus x minus 5. Remember, we cannot combine terms if they are not like terms. So if you have a problem that is not in this form, you will have to do some previous step. Let's work in some examples that are in the form that we need. Okay, the first problem is x squared minus 13x minus 48 equal to 0. First step is to identify A, B, and C. So A is going to be 1 because it's like we have a 1 here. We don't write that 1, but it is there because it's 1x squared. Then B is going to be negative 13, and C is going to be negative 48. Then we're going to make like a big X. And we're going to write 4 numbers in each space. Over here, we're going to write A times C. Here, we're going to write B. And here, we're going to find 2 numbers. And that numbers are going to be divided into A. Whenever we found here, we have to divide into A. Let's write here over A. So just to remember that. And let's start writing that number. So A times C is 48, negative 48 times 1, and that is going to be negative 48. If we have a 1 here, everything is going to be easier because we don't have to divide. When we're going to divide into A, it's going to be divided into 1, so it's going to be the same. And B is negative 13. There is a previous step that I forgot to mention. First, if in this case we don't, but if you have a common factor, if you have a factor, a number that you can divide the 3 terms into that number, you have to do the common factoring. Okay, in another example, we're going to show that. But in this case, we have a 1, a 13, and a 48, and there is not a number that can divide can divide exactly those three numbers. Okay, so we continue. Now, we need to find two numbers here. That numbers have to be two numbers that multiplied are 48 and added are negative 13. So we need to find two numbers that multiplied are negative 48 and added or subtracted, depending on the numbers, are negative 13. Our first approach is to use the multiplication tables, and we can see if we can find a quick answer. So we see 48 can be 6 times 8 is 48. And 48. But even if I subtract them or add them, they are never going to be 13. 6 minus 8 is going to be negative 2 or 2, depending on the signs. And 6 plus 8 is going to be 14, so it's not 13. So in this case, the multiplication tables didn't help me too much. So I have to do something else. Depending on your mental math skills, it will be easier for you to find it quickly. But in any case, I'm going to show you a method to follow the steps and be able to solve it. So first, I'm going to take the 48 and I want to check what are the factors of 48. So I'm going to split that 48 into factors. The factors that are prime numbers. So we start testing with prime numbers. We start with the easiest, with 2. Half of 48, or 48 divided into 2 is 24. 24 divided into 2 is 12. 12 divided into 2 is 6. 6 divided into 2 is 3. And 3 cannot be divided into 2. We try with the next number, that is 3. Okay, if you're not familiar with this method, you can check another video. We'll prepare a video for this. But as you see, 48 is going to be the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. 2 times 2, 4 times 2, 8 times 2, 16 times 3, 48. So now there is some combination of these numbers that will give me, when I add them, it's going to give me 13. I'm going to find all the possible combinations. How I'm going to do that? I'm going to write all the possibilities, but when you are solving the problem and you find the correct one, you don't have to do them all, okay? So I'm going to start with 1 times something, that is 1 times 48, is going to give me 48. So that's always the starting point. Then I go with 2. 2 times something that is 48. 48. So if you see here, you have all the numbers here. So if you take these 2 times the rest of the numbers, that is 48. So it will be 2 times, and on the green part, we have 2 times 2, 4 times 2, 8 times 3, 24. So 2 times 24. As I mentioned, if you just see that 2 times 24 is 48, you don't have to do this. I'm just showing some methodology to follow. And then we go with 3. 3 times something that is 48. So if I take the 3 and that times the rest of the numbers, will be 3 times 2 times 2, 4 times 2, and 2 times 2, 4 times 2, 8 times 2, 16. So it will be 3 times 16. And when you get to practice, this is going to be done very quickly. So now I have 4. That means that I have 4 here, 4 here, and 2 times 2, 4 times 3, 12. Then I have to do 5, but there is not any 5 here, so there is no way to have a 5. Then I will do 6. So it's going to be 6 here. And the rest of the number are 8. 2 times 2 times 2. So 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, then the next number is 7, but it's not possible to have any 7. Then the next number is 8. And if you see, I have 8 times 6. And 8 times 6, I just did it here. And when you reach that point, you are done. We have all the possible combinations. Now we have to see which one of these combinations can give me 13 if you add them or subtract them. And you see 48 plus or minus 1 is not going to be 13. This one neither. This one is going to be 26 or 22. And when we see this, if we subtract 3 and 16, it's going to be 48 and it can be 13. So our numbers are 16 and 3. 16 and 3. But we need to be negative 13 and negative 48. So if it's negative 48, one of them has to be negative. And if it's going to be added negative 13, the negative has to be the greatest. Now we found that negative 16 times 3 is negative 48, and negative 16 plus 3 is negative. And then we have our numbers. As I mentioned before, any number found have to be divided into a. In this case, our a is 1, so it's going to be the same. And each number is going to give us a factor. This one is x plus 3, and this one is x minus 16. And our answer is going to be the multiplication of those two. X minus 16 times x plus 3 equal to 0. So before, we have an expression that is in an addition of 3 terms, and now we have 2 factors, okay? Now, one factor here in yellow, and other factor here in green. That's why we can say that it's factored. And now that it's factored, we can solve it. Now we can, if this is equal to 0, that means that either the first factor is equal to 0 or the second factor is equal to 0. So we have 2 equations, x minus 16 equal to 0, and that if we solve it, add 16 in both sides, x is equal to 16. And the other factor is x plus 3 equal to 0. And then x equal to negative 3. So just by looking at the factors, you can find out numbers. That is our answer. That means that if I substitute negative 3 here, it's going to be 0. If I do negative 3 squared minus 13 times negative 3 minus 48, it should be 0 if everything is okay. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. This is going to be positive 39 minus 48. 0 and this 2 is 48 minus 48, 0. Then our answers are correct. Okay, now let's go to the second example. Okay, the second example, medium difficulty, is going to be 7x squared plus 11x minus 6 equal to 0. So we have it in quadratic form. A is 7, B is 11, and C is negative 6. So it's a little bit different because now A is not 1, now A is 7. So it's going to be same steps, but before we have a 1 and that made everything faster. We have to write here AC, here we write B, in here, whatever result we have, we divided by A. So A times C is going to be 7 times negative 6, negative 42. Remember, always before, check if you have a common factor. In this case, we don't have common factor. Have 7, 11, and 6. They don't have a common number that divides them. And B is going to be 11. So then, now we have to find two numbers that multiplied are 42 and added are negative 42 and added are 11. As I mentioned, maybe you can do mental math and find them quickly, but I'm going to show you steps to find it. 42, we have to split 42 into factors. Then half, we test with the prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7. So half is 21. We cannot divide into 2, so we try with 3. 7. 7 we cannot divide into 2, we cannot divide into 3, cannot divide into 5, and then divide into 7. So 42 is 2 times 3 times 7. And we look for all the possibilities. One possibility is 1 times 42. Other possibility is 2 times the rest, that is 21. And other possibility is 3 times the other 2. So it's 3 times 14, 7 times 2 is 42. And which one can give me 11? It will be this one, because if we subtract them, we can have an 11. Okay, then our numbers are going to be 3 and 14. But we need to have negative 42. And so one of them has to be negative, and we want to have positive 11. So then this is going to be the negative. The number that we found, we have to divide them into A and simplify if possible. So 14 into 7 is 2. And here we cannot simplify any more than. Now we're going to have two factors here. One factor is going to be x plus 2. This factor, when we have a fraction, we make it like this. We write the denominator with the x, 7 times x, and then the numerator with the sign that it has. Then our answer is 7x minus 3. 7x minus 3 is one factor, and the other factor, x plus 2, equal to 0. So this expression was factored, and now we have this one. And we can find the two answers. One is 7x minus 3 equal to 0. We solve this at 3, cancel 7x equal to 3, divide 7, cancel, and x equal to 3 over 7. That if you see, it's the same number that you had before, just with the opposite sign. And x plus 2 equal to 0, then it's going to be, we subtract 2, cancel, x equal to -2. That is the same number that you have, but with the opposite sign. Now let's go to the third example. That is 30x squared plus 80x 2x minus 2x minus 12 equal to 0. First step, A, B, and C. And here, when we see the numbers, we have a common factor. They can all be divided into 2. So 30 divided into 2 is 15. 12 divided into 2 divided into 2 is 1. In this case, -1. And negative 12 divided into 2 is -6. That means that we have to do a common factor with 2. We take the 2 at the front, and now we divide each term by 2. And we have our first step in factoring. So if you see, it's the opposite to the distributive property. If you do this distributive property, you have 2 times 15x squared, 30x squared, 2 times -x, -2x, and 2 times 6, -6, -12. So we're doing the opposite. And now we're going to solve this part. We have a 2. We have one part done. But now we have to do this. And we're going to use now a new A, B, and C. Now A, B, and C are going to be 15, -1, and -6. Why? Because we're going to solve that, like start a new problem with this. And now we check the AC, the B, wherever we have to remember to divide into A. A times C is going to be 15 times 6. 30. -90. And the B is -1. So we have to split 90 into factors. As I mentioned before, if you just look at the numbers and find out two numbers that multiply that 90 and added are 1, that's it. I'm just showing this method to follow up some steps. So half of 90, 45. 45 divided into 3, 15. 15 divided into 3 is 5. I'm going to make all the possibilities. 1 times 90 is 90. 2 times the rest here, and the rest is going to be 3 times 3, 9 times 5, 45, 90. Then 3, if I take 1, 3, it will be 3 times the other numbers. It's going to be 3 times 5, 15 times 2 times 3, 30. 4, there is no way I can have a 4. 5 is 5 times 9 times 15. Then 6, we have a 6, it will be 6 times 15. There is no way to have a 7, there is no way to have an 8. We have 9, 9 times 10. And if we have 10, it will be 10 is 2 times 9, but we already did that one here. So that means that we're done. That are all the possibilities. So which one of these possibilities can give me -1 if I add them or subtract them? 9 and 10. I need to be -90, so one of them has to be negative, and I want to have -1 when I add them. So this one has to be negative because it's the greatest. Then we have to divide into A, and A is 15. And we can have to simplify. If we simplify, dividing 5, this is 2. 10 divided into 5 is 2. 15 divided into 5 is 3. And if we simplify here using 3, 9 divided into 3 is 3, and 15 divided into 3 is 5. That means that we're going to have two factors. Remember, we use the denominator with the x and the other number with the sign. Same here. And that's it. Now we have the 2 that we did before, and we're going to have the 2 factors. One factor is 5x plus 3, and the other factor is 3x minus 2. And our answers will be the numbers such that make this expression equal to 0. So 3, 5x equal to -3, divide 5, x equal to -3, 5. That, if you see, is the number that you have here, but just changing the sign. And 3x minus 3 equal to 0 is plus 2 plus 2. 3x equal to 2, and divide 3. But you know, you have the numbers from before. I'm just showing you that are the same, but you really have the answers from here. So depending on your question, if your question is to write the factored form, you just write this. If your question is about finding the roots or solving the equation, you just write the answer changing the sign. Well, that's it. I hope it helps. This is going to be used to solve also quadratic inequalities, and well, to do different problems that requires to do factoring before going to the next step. In some cases, when you look for all the possibilities, there is not any possibility that will give you the number here. In that case, that means that it cannot be solved this way. It has to be done with quadratic formula also. Okay, thank you.